going to start our program tonight. But first, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming out on this iffy weather night. I hope none of you did the swan dive in the parking lot like I did before I got here. I popped right back up and I'm not dirty or bloody, so here we go. I'd like, on behalf of the Chamber, to thank our sponsors that helped us put this on tonight. Mary Raymond with Keller Williams, Romeo Family Restaurant, Guardian Angel Cemetery, and River of God. Without your support, we really can't do all of this. So again, thank you so much for helping us out. So there was 11 vendors here tonight, and we had shopping at the beginning of the night, and I'm hoping to open it back up after the presentations. So keep your pocketbooks open, ladies. Our first speaker tonight is Wendy Santavica. Wendy is a nurse practitioner at Troy Beaumont Corewell Health. That's the new name, right? In the cardiac cath lab. Wendy has been with Beaumont for the past 6 years. Prior to that, she was a cardiac cath lab registered nurse for 17 years at St. Joseph's Mercy, Oakland. Wendy has been a nurse for 30 years. Our second speaker is Lynette Van Riekingham. Lynette is a registered nurse, clinical manager of endoscopy. What are you? Endoscopy. Well, funny thing is, Lynette and I asked her if she wanted to do a PSA with me for this event, and she goes, well, in my world, that's a prostate exam. What is that? It's a public service announcement, guys. So, two different things. So Lynette will be talking to us tonight on colon health. So up first is Wendy.
Yep, you do. Darn. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. First of all, I want to have you guys show me your hands on who knows anyone that's had a heart attack or heart disease. So now look around. Look around with everybody's hands up. I want you guys to look around. We all know someone, right? So what I'm gearing my talk tonight about is not just women's heart health, but heart health in general. Because what I want you to walk away with tonight is knowing not only what you can do, but what you can do to help others, okay? And this is very informal for me. I want you to stop me if you have questions. I'm very passionate about heart health. My dad had a heart attack at 48 years old. He had bypass surgery thereafter and ended up dying at a young age of 59. So my career has been all, and I'm really passionate, so I may sometimes get on a rampage a little bit, but I like to have you ask me questions, interact, tell me stories of what you've seen, and I think that we learn from each other. And so I don't want this to be dry, but it's kind of dry. But I also want you to know things that when you leave here, you'll say, oh, I can recognize someone's having a heart attack, or someone might be having a heart attack. Or what can I do to help my own heart? That's really my goal here. So stop me, ask questions, we'll get through this. I might have more material than I need, but we'll zip through some of it and go from there. What is heart disease? That's really a question that I get asked a lot. It's not just one thing, it's many, okay? So heart disease is not just, it's atherosclerotic disease. That's where the blood vessels of the heart develop plaque and they can rupture and cause a heart attack, or they can narrow and cause a heart attack. Those are two different types of heart attacks. You can be born with it, so congenital heart disease. You can have a weakened heart muscle, which is called cardiomyopathy, and there's a couple different kinds of that. Endocarditis is an infection in the heart that's another type of heart disease. And then valvular heart disease, which is disease of one or more of the valves in our heart. So those are all the different types of heart disease that you might hear about or see. Next, Brendan. So heart disease, what's the problem? Well, first of all, it's the leading cause of death in not only men, but women. And a lot of people don't realize that, and I wanted to make sure that you guys are clear on it. It's killed 314,186 women in 2020. I don't have the 23 or 22 dates yet, but 1 in 5 female deaths is from heart disease. Not cancer, not all the cancers combined. So, you know, paying attention to our heart is really important. Only 54% of women recognize that heart disease is the #1 killer. How many people in here knew that heart disease was the #1 killer? That's good. That's more than I normally see, believe me. Brandon? It is the leading cause of death in the United States. As you can see, when you look at all the different causes of death, heart disease is at the very top for both men and women. Some misperceptions about heart disease. It's a man's disease. I hear that a lot. And I'll tell you guys a couple stories regarding that. Women are not at risk for heart disease. That's another one I hear all the time. They don't get it till they're elderly. Cancer is a greater threat to our health than heart disease. And then I want to just show you this. This is a statistic that's actually from 11 to 14. But if you look at the bars, you can see the percentage of coronary artery disease in men and women, and how as we age it gets higher. And then again, the trends. So one of the things I find interesting that I wanted to show you guys really is as you can see, people dying is still high, but we've made some progress through time with medications and changing some diets and exercise. So it's a little bit better as time goes by, but you can see that it's still high there for death, mortality. Compared to men, women present with their first acute MI at age 71. So, you know, 65 for men. But now I'm seeing a lot younger, you guys. I'm telling you, I've seen 34-year-old last week. I've seen 40-year-olds. So there's no age limit really. Women wait longer to go to the ER, and they take longer to diagnose. Why do you think? We got too much to do. We don't have time for that, right? So a couple of things to be aware of. If you're ever in a situation where you don't feel like something's right in your body and you know your body, listen to your body, because we are our own advocates for ourselves, right? So if you go to the emergency room and you know something's not right, do not let it go. We had a patient recently who came into the ER, younger lady, 51, not overweight, didn't smoke, did have a little bit of high cholesterol, but wasn't on any medicine for it. She just didn't feel right. She said she felt fatigued more than she normally have. She didn't really have chest pain. She just felt very tired and short of breath. They thought it was the flu, this, that, the other. No one did an EKG for about 40 minutes. And then she got the EKG done, and she was having a heart attack. So I get down there to go see her and talk to her about it. She's like, I can't be. I got stuff, and I'm like, you're having a heart attack. So we are gonna, we're gonna take good care of you. She was like, I can't, I gotta do this and that. No, we're gonna go upstairs, we're gonna open up the blockage, we're gonna see what's going on. And she just couldn't believe it, right? And neither could the ER doctor. So it is our own jobs to advocate for ourselves too, because you know your own bodies and if you're not feeling right. And I want you to, tell others too to pay attention to those things, because we do get missed. Usually present with what's called a non-STEMI or non-obstructive coronary artery disease. So there's two types of heart attacks. There's heart attacks where the plaque in your artery ruptures and it causes a clot to form in your heart, and that stops the blood flow. That's something we urgently take patients to the cath lab for, to open up their artery. And then there's what's called a non-STEMI. And what a non-STEMI is, or a non-ST elevation heart attack, is where the plaque starts to build over time, and it starts to block the vessel, but not completely clot it off. But it causes enough damage that we can do a test in the heart, and it shows that there's some damage going on, and that's called a non-STEMI. So a lot of women present that way, not always just the elevation one. And then with women, the plaque in the arteries sometimes is smooth. It's not like a normal, they can sometimes look like it's a normal coronary angiogram, but then they can have a plaque rupture. Women also have a higher rate of complications after a heart attack because they aren't oftentimes prescribed the right therapies that they need to be on to improve their survival. So why do we educate women about heart disease? Well, women are more likely to die in the first few weeks after a heart attack. 26% of women and 19% of men die within their first year after their first heart attack. Women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die of heart bypass surgery than men at the same age. Since 1984, more women than men have died each year from heart disease. And women's hearts respond better than men's to lifestyle changes, yet 2% of our budget in our government is dedicated to prevention. 2%. And then women comprise only 24% of participants in the heart-related studies, which really bugs the crap out of me, I gotta tell you. I can't tell you how many times I'm reading research and I'm thinking, what? Where are the women in these studies? It's driving me crazy. So it's one of the things I think that we need to work on more in our government too, is making sure women are part of it. So risk factors for heart disease. So first of all, age, we can't change that. As we age, there's more risk for heart disease. Hypertension, high blood pressure that is. Hyperlipidemia, which is high cholesterol. Diabetic and pre-diabetic. Smoking, a big one, I'm gonna talk about that. Family history, of course, and then being overweight, inactivity, and stress, which we all have. So tonight, we got some stress reduction with the massage and the chairs and wine, right? So some risk factors can be modified. All the ones that you see that that aren't highlighted can all be modified. The only thing you can't change is your family history and your age, obviously. It's important to know the risks at all ages. Young women need to take steps to protect their heart since heart disease develops gradually and can start at a young age. Risk rises in women ages 40 to 60 when our estrogen levels drop during menopause, and women develop more risk factors for heart disease during these years. And then older women also need to take action against their risk, as it's never too late for women to protect their heart. So some risk factors that seem to increase in women that are a little bit different is we have low HDL. So HDL is your good cholesterol, and LDL is the bad cholesterol. So those are the two things we look at when we're looking at cholesterol levels for people. A lot of times people will say, well, I have good cholesterol when they've had a heart attack. And I say, well, tell me what you mean by that. And a lot of times what people think is if their level is okay, that they're okay. But what we really look at is like a ratio of bad cholesterol to good cholesterol, and that's really more of a defining factor that gives you the risk. So low HDL, which is the good cholesterol, we see in women. Loss of estrogen, of course. C-reactive protein sometimes is higher in women. Again, I think that's related to our stress levels and what we take in. Diabetes, and then central obesity. Brandon, will you hit that again for me? There you go. So just showing you what an apple shape versus pear shape and the amount of heart disease that we see in more of the apple shape. And I love this cartoon, so I thought I'd throw this in there for you guys. So I can't tell you how many times, and even myself, I've got to admit, where you want to like save on calories or you want to think it's healthy, so you say, I'll take a cheeseburger and fries, a fruit pie, and I'll take that in a low-fat tortilla, or I'll take a Diet Coke with it, right? So you're trying to save, and I thought I just cracked up a bit. I thought that was super funny. I just see it a lot where we're trying to save somewhere we can, so we'll cut one thing when everything else is about 2,000 calories, right? So one of the risk factors that we talked about earlier was hypertension. So I'm going to just briefly touch hypertension with you guys a little bit. So hypertension, no symptoms are associated with it, more strongly associated with an MI in women compared to men, which I don't know if anyone knew that. The effects of high blood pressure cause the heart to work harder. It makes the walls of the arteries hard, and it's the #1 risk factor for stroke and can lead to kidney disease. And hypertension increases risk for heart disease 3.5 times the normal one. And this just shows you, just at a glance, blood pressure and cardiovascular mortality. And you can see when your blood pressure is controlled well, 115/75, the risk is low. But when you look at a blood pressure of 175/105, you can see it's 8 times the risk for mortality. So how do we lower our blood pressure? Well, weight loss, if you're overweight, easier said than done, right, ladies? I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like I do try so hard, and I'm like, gosh, I can't. I've lost 3 pounds, and I've done all these things. So I know it's really difficult, but it does improve people's blood pressure when they lose weight. Routine exercise, at least 30 minutes a day. Now, I'm going to tell you guys there's some new data that, because I don't know about you, but I don't always have 30 minutes in my day, right? So there is some new data that says if you do 10 minutes at a time, 10 minutes, multiple different times, it's the same benefit as 30 minutes. 10 minutes. So I think almost anybody can give themselves 10 minutes to walk or 10 minutes to get some kind of exercise in there, and that's going to benefit you tremendously over time. Limiting alcohol. That was a tough one, right? But believe it or not, there is health benefit to the heart with a low amount of alcohol intake. But once women hit more than 2 drinks, it actually does not help the health. And I hate to say it, because we all drink our wine, but that is a fact. So usually it helps some when it's a low amount, but limiting alcohol to 1 drink a day for women is what's recommended. Quit smoking. Now, easier said than done again. I've never smoked, so I really can't, I'm not going to be a critic about it because I've never smoked. My mom would tell me it's literally the hardest thing I've ever done. Her quitting smoking was like the biggest deal ever, and she said it was the hardest thing she's done, and she still wanted one years later. And I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but when you tell a patient that's had a heart attack to quit smoking, and they're like, oh, and then they come back a year later and they're smoking, it's hard. It's really hard. And so we make an effort in my department particularly to not only tell them the benefits of it, but to try to help them with whatever it takes. So medications, nicotine patch, counseling, whatever it takes to quit, because we know it affects the heart tremendously. And then reducing stress. Again, for us women, I feel like we take the world on, right? And we do everything for everyone else, but not necessarily ourselves. So tonight, you're doing something for yourself, so I'm very proud of you. But reducing stress is a key, even if it's just some meditation at the end of the night, just calming your brain and calming yourself down. Low salt diet. So this one's interesting too, because I do really feel like a lot of the processed foods that we eat, and because we're in a hurry and we want something quick, we often have those things, and they have a lot of sodium. If you really pay attention to the label, you will be surprised at how much sodium is added to everything. And if you can meal prep and cook yourself, you'll be a lot better off with the salt intake anyway. And then the DASH diet is what we recommend for hypertension, and it's really just like lower salt, fruits, veggies, low fat dairy, lean meats. But I wanted to mention, and it's not on here, the Mediterranean diet's actually really recommended for heart as well. So that adds like seafood to it. So fish, salmon, and then all those things as well, the fruits and veggies and low fat dairy. So hyperlipidemia is just a fancy word for elevated lipid and cholesterol, and that's another risk factor for heart disease. Cholesterol is needed for our bodies to stay healthy, so it's not something we want to get rid of completely. The 2 sources is our own body makes cholesterol and the food. Liver and other cells produce 75% of cholesterol, and 25% comes from our diet. Cholesterol is found in animal products, and then elevated total cholesterol and LDL is what predicts the cardiac death, both men and women. Reduced HDL and high triglycerides are also very powerful risk factors for heart disease in women. We see a lot of that. Cholesterol goals, healthy lifestyle, and this one's a little bit busy. I'm just gonna really say to you, we try to keep, whenever someone has a risk or if they've had a heart attack, we try to keep their LDL less than 70. So just kind of stick that in your mind. That's really what we're looking for when people have had any kind of heart attack or any kind of heart disease. So how do we lower cholesterol? Obviously, again, back to the weight. My gosh, I'm going to beat that to death. And then eating better, low in saturated fats and trans fats and cholesterol. Eat more, like I already mentioned, lean meats, dairy, whole grains, fish, and veggies. And then less organ meats, egg yolks, fats, oils, and processed foods. I'd say more processed foods than anything, in my personal opinion, and less sugar. More than even those things. And then exercising any way you can get it. Cholesterol medication, there's a lot of debate. A lot of patients do not like to take it. And I know that there's a lot of misinformation out there too on statins and cholesterol reducing medications. But what I can tell you is, especially with statins, it's not about cholesterol reduction all the time. What statins do is they actually stabilize plaque in the artery wall. So if someone has blockage in their artery, the statin actually stabilizes plaque so it doesn't rupture. So it's not just cholesterol reduction when you're taking it when you have heart disease, it's actually about stabilizing the plaque so that you don't have a heart attack again. Diabetes, another risk for heart disease and heart health. And it is a cardiovascular disease risk equivalent, meaning that when you have it, when you're diabetic, you're at the greater risk for developing heart disease. It's related, especially type 2, not type 1, but type 2, with obesity and metabolic syndrome. And there's a higher relative risk of coronary events with women, especially compared to men. Powerful risk factor in young women, increasing risk for heart disease at 4 to 5 times what the normal person would be that doesn't have diabetes. And then for both men and women with diabetes, the mortality after acute coronary syndrome is significantly higher compared to non-diabetics. One of the things that we see is diabetic patients have smaller blood vessels, which makes it a little more of a challenge to fix those blood vessels with angioplasty and stenting and bypass. So that's another reason to try and prevent as much as you can diabetes. So this is just a little graph showing you guys diabetics and how the percentages in the United States. And this is actually a little bit, I think this one is actually in 2010. It's even higher now with darker areas than we have for this. But just gives you an idea of how the increase has occurred over time. Obesity we've talked a little bit already about, so I'm going to kind of go through that fast. More than a third of women are obese and 7% are morbidly, and especially prevalent around black women, 54% obese, 15% morbidly obese. And then women in the heaviest category have a 4-fold higher risk for cardiovascular events compared to lean women. Higher income women have less likely to be obese than low income. I think again from food selection and choices that they are able to have, and stress. And then trend for less obesity among college educated women as well. This just shows you, this was 2014, and you guys can see the difference from 1994 obesity to now, to 2014. I don't have the 20 data yet, but you can see the drastic difference in obesity in the United States during that time. Smoking and tobacco use, again, we talked a little bit about this, but it is very, very bad for the heart, not just the lungs and everything else. And we do try to get people to quit as soon as possible if they can. It's the single most important preventable cause of heart attack in women. Single most, out of everything I've mentioned tonight. So if I get across anything, it's to quit smoking if you smoke. Increase the risk of MI by 7 times. There's no safe way to smoke. Don't tell me you don't inhale. I get that a lot, but I don't really inhale. Do you breathe? Because if you breathe, you inhale. And most patients don't believe that, but that's the truth. And any chemicals from the cigarette cause blockages in the heart. The risk of acute MI, heart attack, is substantially reduced within 1 to 2 years of stopping smoking, and it falls to the level of a non-smoker within 10 to 15 years. Smoking 1 cigarette daily, women who smoked 1 cigarette daily had a 119% increase for coronary heart disease and 46% increase for stroke. That's telling you something right there. And then men who smoked 1 cigarette daily had 74% increased risk for coronary disease and a 30% increased risk for stroke. The risk from smoking 1 cigarette daily was about half that from smoking 20. So if you can cut back, obviously we want that more than anything. So one of the things I want to talk to you, we've already talked a little bit about, was what do women feel? We don't feel the same things as men with a lot of things, right? Well, we definitely don't when you're having a heart attack. Their symptoms are totally different. They don't always, even though you've seen these women do like this, I've had women, I went to pick up someone having a heart attack who had a toothache. And they had been having this toothache on and off, right? They'd already been to the dentist, nothing wrong with their tooth. They had already been to their primary care, and no one did an EKG. And then she came into the ER, and it was a constant one now with nothing wrong with her tooth. Guess what? She was having a heart attack. She had a toothache in her jaw, left side. So women are different. We have different kind of symptoms. Go ahead, Ruth. I'm just showing you this to show you, this is the things that I see. So sometimes people have left shoulder pain. Sometimes they have a toothache. Sometimes they're short of breath. Sometimes they have a middle of their backache. Those are all symptoms that I've seen with women. This one's a really good one, and it shows you his and her symptoms, right? So men more likely have chest pain, tightness, heartburn, nausea, vomiting, and sweating. Whereas women have nausea, extreme fatigue, arm and neck pain, anxiety, appetite loss, shortness of breath. So many women with heart attacks have shortness of breath. If you're short of breath and you've not been before, there's something wrong. Get help, right? You shouldn't be short of breath unless there's something going on, especially if it's new for you. So listen to your body. Again, men have the substernal crushing chest pain, rest pain, weakness. Women, chest pressure, shortness of breath, pain in one or both arms, neck, jaw, stomach, tooth, back pain, flu-like symptoms, fatigue. 71% of women say, I'm just so tired. I've never been tired like this. I'm so tired all the time. That is another symptom. And nausea and lightheadedness is another one that we see a lot. So women don't realize that they're having signs of a heart attack. And because they don't recognize it, they get to the ER a lot later. And that can hurt them permanently. Time is muscle. I don't know if you've heard us say that or if you've heard anyone say time is muscle ever before, but when you're having a heart attack, we want to be fast to open up the artery and get your heart getting flow, because the longer you wait, the more oxygen gets deprived from your heart and the more chance of damage to the heart muscle occurs. So time is muscle, meaning we want you to get to the ER, get evaluated, and get help quickly. Don't wait. Time is muscle. That was me supposed to be trying to tell you again, time is muscle. So there's no quick fix for coronary artery disease. No quick fix. So coronary artery bypass surgery or stenting can reopen the blocked artery. Procedures do not necessarily fix the damaged heart. Remember, I just told you guys that. The condition worsens if not treated, can lead to disability or death. And it's critical to realize that there's no quick fix for heart disease. Heart disease is a disease that we do not have a cure for. We have treatment, lots of treatment, but we don't have a cure. I think one of the things I see that helps the most right now is just taking care of yourselves, not smoking, not, changing your lifestyle. I actually had a patient recently who had a heart attack. I think it was 10 years ago was his first heart attack. This is a gentleman. He completely changed everything. He's doing Mediterranean diet. He's been exercising. He went to cardiac rehab after his heart attack. He quit smoking. He literally changed everything, and he had an abnormal stress test, so he came in for a heart catheterization. And we looked at his arteries, and they looked better than he did when he had his heart attack. And I was like, oh my gosh, everything he's done is actually working. He didn't end up needing anything done. The stent he had was still open. It was a false positive stress test, because he's like, I don't understand, I feel good. And he didn't have anything, and it was actually reversed. And I haven't seen that often, but it was really, to me, an eye-opener. So the good news is 80% of heart disease can be prevented or controlled. Prevention includes the lifestyle changes that we've already talked about, and medicines prescribed by your doctor. How do you lower cardiovascular risk? We've already talked about this. So just, exercise program, eating healthy, lowering blood pressure and LDL and diabetic control. For diabetics, we like it to be hemoglobin A1C less than 7. And then additional benefits to doing these things: less depression, improved sleep. And then recommending, but again, I'm going to tell you guys, it says 30 to 45 here, but a lot of the data you're going to hear coming out is saying, you don't need to do it all at once, which is good, because it's hard for us to do that. But benefits of aerobic exercise, obviously it strengthens heart muscle and the pump, and then it conditions the heart muscle to better rate control. It protects the heart arteries to reduce, and appears to reduce inflammation. And then it decreases resting heart rate and blood pressure, which I see a lot, that athletes have a lower blood pressure and heart rate, which is good. And then it increases angina, meaning threshold, chest pain threshold. It also decreases triglycerides, and it increases HDL, which is good. That's the good cholesterol, and it helps you maintain weight. Again, also in helping with blood sugar control. Exercise capacity was the most powerful predictor of death in a study of men. And then survival in men was increased by 12% with the increase in treadmill. Survival increases up to 17% in women with exercise. And then it also improves your oxygenation to your lungs and heart. And like I just told you guys, it changes the actual vessels inside. Exercise training also decreases body fat and increases HDL, which we already talked about. So here we go with the alcohol. I gotta get back to it, one little time. I didn't put a lot in here on the alcohol, but I just wanted you guys to be aware. If you look at this chart, no alcohol actually has higher mortality. But occasional or 1 to 2 were actually very good on mortality, as you can see on the chart. But anything 3 drinks or more a day increased mortality again. So we're a balancing act on that. I know. So heart and blood vessels, in the short term with alcohol, you get perspiration increases, skin becomes flushed, and then long term, you can get high blood pressure, damage to the heart muscle, and you can actually the heart arteries become less flexible. 7.4% of adult population in the U.S. are alcoholics, 185 billion cost of alcohol abuse in the United States, and 100,000 deaths annually in the U.S. related to alcohol. 1.2 billion spent on wine, beer, liquor, and advertisement. Billion. So take-home messages. Heavy drinkers should be encouraged to reduce their consumption. Most light to moderate drinkers can probably continue, and non-drinkers should not generally be encouraged to do it. So awareness then and now. What's your greatest health risk in 1995? They asked, the Gallup poll asked people. And in 1995, about a third of women and a fifth of physicians answered correctly heart disease. That's it in 1995. And then, go next. Oh, I don't have the other one. I think we got the last one. But essentially, in the next survey, this was 2009, they asked the same questions. Would you call for 911 if you were having any of these symptoms? And only 53% responded yes, 46% said they'd take an aspirin and visit the doctor later. And then if your friend was having those symptoms, would you call? And guess what? Yes, they would. Again, not listening to ourselves, right? And not taking care of ourselves. So there is no magic pill. I love this one too. Eat less, exercise more. That's the most ridiculous fad diet I've ever heard of. We love these fad diets, right? So in conclusion, heart disease is the leading cause of death in women. Women may have different symptoms than men. Identify risk factors for coronary artery disease, which we've already talked about, and aggressively try to treat those. Recognize symptoms that may represent underlying coronary artery disease. And lifestyle modifications can lower overall risk of coronary artery disease. Questions? I try to go fast. Anybody? Any comments? Yes?
So I think what I'm hearing is sometimes we are not our best advocate, so as women we need to be each other's
Absolutely.
best advocates.
Absolutely.
So paying attention to the symptoms in other people.
Absolutely. Not just yourself, but listening to other people, and if you recognize what they're saying might be a symptom of heart disease, make sure they get help. Someone over there was asking. Yeah.
I have a question. My dad had a heart attack
Mm-hmm.
and had 2 strokes. And they said that they want to wait for him to get 75% blockage, and he's at 60 right now. Why
Okay.
is that? Why do they like to wait?
So, very good question. So, when you have blockage in your heart, all of the research that we have says anything greater than 70, we treat with angioplasty and stenting. Anything less than that doesn't show benefit. There's more benefit to actually treating with medications, and all of them get medications anyway, but until it gets to that 70% area, that's the time we treat. Anything less, they just treat with medications because the data doesn't support stenting in something that's less.
So it's not effective really until it's at 70 or higher.
Right, that's exactly right. So it doesn't show much benefit to anyone if we do it when they're less blocked.
Right.
So we just treat with medication, they have the same outcomes. There was a huge study, like 30,000 people in it, and it 100% proved that people do better with medications when there's less stenosis. But having pay attention, keep, if he's starting to feel more short of breath or have more symptoms, he should get looked at before, don't wait,
Yeah.
just in case.
Very stubborn man.
I understand. I see him every day. I see both men and women very stubborn every day.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you guys for your time. Feel free to ask me later if you want to ask me about anything.
Hi, everybody. That got really loud quick, I'm sorry. I don't normally hold these in my hand. I want to introduce myself. My name is Lynette Van Rickingham. I'm an endoscopy nurse at Troy Beaumont Hospital. I don't think I can ever get used to saying Corwell. Someday I will get there, but for now it's going to be Troy Beaumont. I'm sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Again, Lynette Van Rickingham, Troy Beaumont Hospital. I can't quite get to Corwell yet, but I'm getting there. Today, you guys, I want to just take 5 minutes of your time, and I want to talk about something that is very, very important to me, something that we all neglect as women, and that's your colon health. I can't really do slides after dinner. As a colon nurse, it doesn't really work well. Nobody wants to see that, and I would lose all of you guys in about 3 minutes flat. But what I do want to talk about is the importance of colonoscopy screening. Have you ever had big hair like this? How many of you have had big hair, used Aquanet, shoulder pads, record players, Don Johnson and Miami Vice? You're past due. You need to come and see me. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to think about it. Women avoid this. Men do too, quite frankly. We avoid it because we think, oh my God, one, the prep. If you've ever heard stories about the prep, it's true. It's true. But if you plan well, if you really think about it, maybe plan for the colonoscopy on a Thursday because you can have date night on Friday, and I promise you are about 20 pounds leaner at that moment. That weight is going to come back right after dinner, so you might want to run. okay? Because it's all gonna pop out. But really and truly, it's not as horrific as people say. The test itself really is about 10 minutes. You're sleeping, anesthesia, it's beautiful, you're in, you're out. What women don't realize, this is the second leading cause of cancer deaths. This is preventable. It really is. Colon cancer grows very, very slowly. That's why you only have to get it done every 10 years. You don't have to come and see me every 5 days. You don't have to come and see me every year unless we find a polyp. We find that polyp, you're coming back. Why are you coming back? Because it can turn to cancer. 45 is the new 50. For years and years and years, 50 was the gold standard for a colonoscopy, not anymore. 45. Unfortunately, we're seeing it at even younger ages now. 20s, 30s, it's devastating. Some of the things that we don't talk about are symptoms. What are the symptoms of colon cancer? Breathing. That's it. I mean, really and truly, there's not a lot of symptoms that come with it. And the symptoms that do, it's usually later. You're gonna feel bloated. I feel bloated right now. You might have some back pain. I'm wearing heels. I have back pain. Okay? The symptoms are something that we feel every day. And as women, just like Wendy spoke about, we ignore these symptoms. We don't have time for them. We simply don't. And really, who wants to go and do that test? I do. Get it done. It needs to be done. This is so important. Women are always worried about what we're going to see. Crazy as it sounds, we really don't see that much. I promise, nobody in that room is looking at your butt. Okay? That's one of the biggest fears in that room. No one's looking at it. They're all looking up at a TV screen. No, we can't see anything that we're not going to talk about right now. We can't see any of that on there. It's very quick, very fast, painless. You go to sleep, 6 minutes later you wake up, the best sleep you've ever had in your entire life. How many of you here have had one? Can you attest to that and tell me that that is the best 6 minutes of sleep that you have ever had in your life? It is. The drive home can be a little bit scary sometimes because you might have to go to the bathroom again, so wear appropriate clothes and plan on the gas station stops on the way by, but you're going to be fine. I promise you're going to be fine. Risk factors for colon cancer? Everything Wendy said. Everything. There's nothing I can add to that aside from breathing and being alive. That's the biggest risk factor. Why am I wearing all this? Because I want you guys to remember. I want you guys to remember. I want you guys to think about how important this is. I want you guys to be the queens of your own health care. I want you guys to take this into your hands and I want you guys to do something about it because, again, this is preventable. Colon cancer is devastating. Statistically, right now in this room, I think we have 61 people that you had said? 76? Oh, that's a lot of math to do really fast. Three of you right now, statistically speaking, are sitting here not realizing you have colon cancer. It's growing inside of you right now. I can't see it, I can't tell, but if you don't come and see me, it's not going to be good in the end. So ladies, please, 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 if you have not had your colonoscopy yet, you are 45 years old, have a history of colon cancer, or you're simply having some funky stuff going on in here, some weird pains, bloating, things just aren't going the way that they should, talk to your doctor. Talk to them. You're going to miss one day of work. That's it. And you know, that's just the gold standard. There are other tests aside from colonoscopies. Colonoscopy is the gold standard, but there's FIT testing, which is a fecal test. There's other tests too that can be done. The only issue with those tests, because even my mother herself decided to cut and go with one of those can't tell you if you have a polyp. They can tell you if you have cancer or if you ate a human being, because they're specific to human blood, so I always found that a little weird. But they can't tell you if you have a polyp. They can't see it. Even that pill camera that you swallow, it can't see everything. It's not as good as a colonoscopy. And even now they have all of this fun little magical things that we put in the room that can see even more polyps than what we have ever seen before. They come out quickly, it's painless, and nothing. It's not really even any bleeding at the end of it. Recovery time is from anesthesia, not from the procedure. You're going to work the next day and you're gonna party like a rock star because you're 20 pounds skinnier now. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not gonna talk any more about this because we don't wanna get too deep into this after dinner. I'm good with no questions. Ladies, have a great night. Thank you for coming. We really, really appreciate it. Please get your colonoscopy.